Welcome to the Move with Motus Podcast. My name is Dr. Christopher Ellis, and joining me is personal trainer John Williams. We are the owners of Motus Personal Training and Physiotherapy. Together, we will discuss any topic you can think of when it comes to training and rehab. From the carnivore diet to hip impingement, you can be sure that all your questions will be answered. Enjoy this week's episode. Okay, John, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah? What's going on?
Well, this will be a little bit different episode. Not necessarily much about training, but I think, being happy, stress-free also leads into your ability to perform as well. So I think it definitely ties into what we try to do as health professionals.
So I hear you've got a system you've developed.
Yeah, I've developed a few systems, and today this will be a multi-part, not only blog series, but also podcast series. And today I want to talk about mindset a little bit, because if you don't have the right mindset going into this and trying to build a stress-free life, you're going to have a hard time implementing the other systems that I discussed later on.
Absolutely. So tell me about it.
So one of the things I want to say right off the bat, this being part one, and I say this in the blog as well, is I'm a 24-year-old kid. I don't have kids.
Yes. So what are you going to teach me?
Exactly. I'm not married. My parents paid for my college. So you can disregard me completely for this based on my circumstances, because to be quite honest, I haven't had to deal with a lot of very hard, things in my life. So that's completely fair, but that does not mean that somebody in my situation or some people in similar situations don't have stress, depression, anxiety. I personally dealt with depression at a pretty high level for probably about a decade, maybe a little more. And it was tough. It was really tough, and there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of suicidal thoughts. And I knew I wanted two things in life. I knew I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to be wealthy. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to just get rich and then be miserable. Mm-hmm. I should probably work on the happiness part first. So I spent the course of about a decade, maybe about 12 years or so, getting as happy as possible. So even though I have all these great things in my life, like a good family, a little bit of money in my bank account, I've also developed systems that make sure that I'm rock solid. So again, you could disregard me for my circumstances, but at the same time, I feel like I've learned some things that people probably need to know.
All right. Do we need to know what got you into depression in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be the biggest part of the conversation today, and it's
right.
Really perspective. So let's just talk about a little bit about me too. Even when I compare myself to other people, I even like really high flyers, really high achievers, wealthy people, smart people. I've definitely noticed listening to podcasts or reading their books. I'm like, oh, okay, I still have systems that they haven't been able to build. Mm-hmm. They're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever the case might be, and they're still struggling with some things that I feel like I've solved at a young age. So I feel like I do have a unique skill set in this, and also being a personal trainer, I see a lot of the chaos that goes on in other people's lives. Mm-hmm. I had a client today. I was speaking with him, just discussing his business, and he's a owner of a big business, multi-million-dollar company, has been running this company for 20 years. He's earned the freedom that he seeks, but he still gets sucked into the chaos that is life. And he and I were having this conversation today. I'm like, dude, you earned this. You earn the opportunity to decide where you get to be when you want to be there. And some people just have a hard time taking advantage of it. So one of the biggest things when it comes to stress in life is chaos. So chaos leads to uncertainty, and this uncertainty then leads to stress. And what we want to do is we want to build systems to eliminate chaos. That means you don't have to do chores. That means you don't have to wake up when you don't want to wake up. That means you're getting your full night of sleep. That means every day you wake up, everything's steady, it's neutral, you feel good, you feel great. Exercise and nutrition are a huge piece of that too. But before you're able to do those things, you have to front load with a lot of really hard work. That means setting checklists of things you need to do. That means building habits that are really hard to build. That means breaking bad habits that are really hard to break. So there's this front-loading process that really sucks. It makes you feel small, but it's necessary in order to build a stress-free life.
Okay. Give me an example of some of these systems.
So let's I'll mention one just as an example, and then let's go into the mindset conversation that I want to have today. All so right. One of the things people do a lot is laundry, of course. Mm-hmm. And this will be good because this is a you and I type of conversation, because you brought this up the other day. And one of the things people do a lot of is loose socks, right? And I don't know if you've ever lost socks before. I know you have. It is a frustrating experience. You lose socks. You don't know where they go. You're taking your socks and you're losing them, and then you have to mix match them with other socks, and then you have to take the singles and like put them in the drawer and hope that its friend finds it at some point down the line, or maybe you just lose one of the other socks and you're like, okay, finally now I have two, even though I just lost one. And it's a ridiculous experience, right?
It's just so menial. Like, why? Why do we waste our time in this kind of thing?
Exactly. And we do waste time just trying to figure out. And then it's mental energy, right? You think about the socks. You're like, why the fuck did I lose this sock? Well, what you can do is you can decide what you need the socks for, what occasions. And then you buy the exact same kind of each of the socks. Let's say I need some low-cut socks for my athletic stuff. I need some dress socks. Okay, I really only need 2 types of socks. I'm going to get the exact type of dress socks. I'm going to buy a whole bunch of them. And I'm going to get the exact type of athletic socks. So if I lose one, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to have its exact match. It's right there.
It's so funny because you and I both do the same thing, completely independent of each other. Like,
yeah.
I was telling you, like, oh, I created this system. You're like, I do the same thing.
Yep.
So yeah, so for the listeners, I have a little bin, and I just buy. Well, so I only have one sock. That's it. I don't have dress socks. Actually, that's true. I have one set of dress socks. Everything else is low cut black socks.
Yeah.
So I do like a purge every like year.
Yep.
Because you start to lose them, some develop holes. So I just throw them all out, go store, buy like 24 pairs of the same exact sock, and they all just go into the bin. That's it. It's a beautiful system.
Yeah, and it makes so much more sense. And systems like this, little types of life hacks, is a big part of what we're going to talk about throughout the course of the podcast. But one of the first things I want to talk about is just mindset in general. Now, this is definitely a self-help podcast, just like the blog on the same topic is a self-help blog. So you have to be willing to help yourself. If you're listening to this and you're not even out the door, just shut it off. Wait till the day where you're actually ready to help yourself, because guess what? You're not going to be able to do it. Because life is all about perspective. If you sit around and believe that the world is against you, suddenly it will be. But the inverse is also true. If you believe that you are in control of the world and the world is with you, suddenly there's way less friction. And that's what I want everybody to realize. And this is one thing I had a really hard time with growing up, was I just thought that everywhere I turned, people didn't want to deal with me. People didn't want to hang out with me. People didn't like me. I couldn't get these opportunities. People were better than I was, so they were getting it over me. Why was the world so bad to me? Why did I have to deal with all these things? One of the things that I dealt with kind of early on, I am dealing with now, is like I started going bald from like a young age, like 20. Started losing my hair a little bit.
I never noticed.
Well, I'm pretty creative. But it was like one of those things. It was like, oh, of course, like, I finally got over my acne thing from when I was a teenager. Now I'm going bald. Like, what the hell? But I was like, hold on. This is a circumstance that's completely out of my control. Mm-hmm. If I flip the script and I'm like, oh, well, I can just shave my head, and then I get to not have to wash my hair. This is so much easier. Oh, my God, look at life. Yeah, and I used to have this long hair, and it was like really hard to deal with. But as long as we can flip the script and become an optimist, well, our whole perspective has just changed. We get a little more control, a little less chaos. And that's one of the big things. We need to talk about what stress is first before we talk about becoming an optimist. Stress is wanting to be in 2 places at once. Oh, I really need to get this work done, but I really want to sit around and watch TV. Oh, I should be reading a book, but I really want to go out with my friends, so on and so forth, right? We need to alleviate this stress. So one of the ways we can alleviate stress is by becoming an optimist. And this becomes challenging for a lot of people because there are certain circumstances in life that suck, right? You got fired. Somebody passed away. You got dumped. These are things where it's hard to find the silver lining in, but I have yet to find a circumstance in my life where there wasn't a silver lining, where there wasn't something good. You got fired. Good. There's a better job out there waiting for you somewhere. Now you have the time to go seek it. You got dumped. Good. They weren't the person for you anyway. Mm-hmm. Now you have time to go find who it is. Somebody in your life passed away. Well, they were probably suffering if they were on the verge of death, so they're not here anymore. That's probably good. They're in a better place. Or they didn't live a good life. Good. It's probably better that they're not around.
Or, so my wife had a family member pass away. It was very traumatic for her. But what it did was basically bring everybody together. And that was like one of my first times actually being her extended family. And I feel like it glued our family together and made my wife and I more resilient.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's always a silver lining. Sometimes it's hard to find, but it's there.
It's hard to find. And I had since living this way in a more intense fashion, I had 2 pretty significant deaths in my family. 2 people I was very, very close to. And in both situations, I already built up this resiliency and this, fortress of happiness, pretty much. Kind of an interesting term. Sounds a little aggressive, but it's kind of what it feels like. And when it happened and when these people passed away, one was very sudden, one was a little drawn out. There was really no grieving on the back end. It was like I had already come to terms with it before it happened. I'd already decided that it was better off that way before it happened. Anyway, even with the one that was kind of sudden, I kind of already rationalized it in my head.
Yeah. So you can almost build up like a scar tissue in a sense, emotionally.
Yeah, and it's not a negative thing whatsoever.
Right.
I still appreciated my experience with those people. I don't have any guilt towards the way that I feel. I don't feel like I needed to grieve for extended periods of time. They didn't want that for me. If they could see me now and they saw that, hey, he's really happy, he's doing well, they'd probably be better off. People who pass away don't want you to grieve for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And it's not up to you to take on that burden. You got to decide, how can I make this into a positive? Do it, move on.
That's good. That's good perspective. How else are you implementing these systems?
So the other thing we need to talk about, just when it comes from a mindset perspective, so just becoming an optimist too, like I said, anything can be turned into a positive. As an example, I was having a really hard time at my job back a little over a year ago. And so I was getting really frustrated with the way the manager was treating me. I wasn't getting paid a lot. I was like, oh, this is my sign to get out. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to start my own company. Hey, guess what? This is an opportunity to do it earlier. And so that's exactly what I did. Again, everything can be spun into a positive. You're having a bad day at work. Good. There's probably a sign in there somewhere.
Yeah. I find when one door closes, usually 2 others open.
Yeah.
You just have to know how to look forward.
You just had to know how to look for them. Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And here's the deal. When it comes to certain outcomes, especially these negative ones we just discussed, you can't control them. They're completely out of your control. So since that's the case, you can't dwell on them. The way to build good judgment is to focus on the things you can control and control them to the best of your abilities. Like the sock example we gave earlier. Yeah. And getting better sleep and exercising more and eating well. If you can control those things, your level of happiness is going to skyrocket pretty quickly.
Yeah. So you're kind of tipping into like the sort of philosophy of Stoicism, right? So which is all about, don't stress over things you can't control, right? And, you can kind of harness your emotional, what's the word I want to use? Your ability to sort of buffer that, right? Yep. Once you realize that, stressing over things you can't control, all it does is suck energy out of you. And as soon as you let go of that, it becomes like a superpower.
The world is indifferent, right?
Yeah.
It does not care about your feelings. It did not set up these roadblocks in your way because it thought that you either needed the challenge or wanted to beat you down.
You're just not that special.
You're just not that special. And I actually do want to touch on that here for a second too. You're not. You're truly not that special. Life is short and then you die. You might as well enjoy it while you're here.
Absolutely.
And the other thing we need to think about too, and this is just something that's super easy to understand once I give an example. The brain focuses on the negative and it will sit on it for long, extended periods of time. The last time you got offended, just think about it. Maybe somebody commented that you had bad hair, your haircut sucked, or your jeans were ugly, or whatever the case might have been. You got insulted by somebody, and you probably went home that day, told your spouse, told your girlfriend, boyfriend, told your dog. You probably thought about it for the next week. Somebody was probably like, okay, we get it. They were mean to you. Let it go. And you couldn't because you kept dwelling on it. Well, if you become an optimist and you spin it in a positive somehow, hey, guess what? You don't have to think about it quite as long. Now, think about a positive thing you heard recently. Think about a time somebody complimented your hair, complimented your outfit. You're probably like, oh, that was really nice. And then stop thinking about it right away.
That's so true. I had a buddy in high school, Pierce Davis. He would say, if you take every insult and turn it into a compliment, you'll never be offended.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I actually have a good example of this. When we were going to do the podcast yesterday, it happened yesterday, so it was kind of almost opportune that it happened so soon. But yesterday, I got offended. Well, I didn't get offended. Somebody insulted me. Uh-huh. it was one of my clients. He was talking about this other guy who's mad that my client's training with me, because my client is a pretty jacked dude and he has a whole bunch of friends who are really jacked. But he came to me because he needed more flexibility, mobility. He needed to learn how to move. He kept getting hurt. So he finally came to me, even though I'm not as big or as strong as he is.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, of course. Well, he was telling me about this other guy who was, again, really mad that he's training with me. And he told me, he was like, look, here's what he said. He was like, I don't know why you're training with that idiot. What can he teach you that I can't? And I heard it, and I felt nothing because I've been doing this for a while. I'm sure at some point earlier on in my life I would have felt bad about it. But the first thing I thought to myself was, oh, this guy's jealous of me. Like, this big, ripped dude who's athletic is jealous of me.
There you go.
That's awesome.
You turned it around.
Jealousy is one of the best compliments somebody could give you. They want to be in your shoes. They wish they were you.
Yep, they wish they had that client.
Exactly.
I like it.
And now we can talk about jealousy for a second, because the reality of the situation, you can't control others. So there's really no reason to be jealous of them. But we get jealous of people, right? We want their job. We want to be as rich as them. We want to be as good looking as them. We want, my boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife to be as good looking as theirs. We want their kids, so on and so forth, right? They have a nice house. I think one of the easiest things you can do to not be jealous of people, because I've found this in my life, and then it gave me a greater appreciation for who I am, was if I'm going to be jealous of one thing that somebody has, I have to be willing to trade everything I have in my life for what they have. Everything. And it turns out there's 0 people in my life who I would give everything in mine to be them.
Because it comes with other sort of packages, right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, they're really rich, but their job sucks, and it's
Yep.
really stressful, and they get 2 hours of sleep at night.
Yep.
Oh, they have a beautiful wife, but she's a horrible human being. Oh, they have great kids, but their house is real small and they drive a crappy car. Like, there's always something that you don't want of
Yep.
theirs that they have.
There's a great quote. I think it was Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy.
I love that one.
Yeah. It's so spot on.
It really is. And the funniest thing is, I think that's true, but I think if you do compare, a lot of the times you can find joy in that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like that person has an amazing house, but I would never want to work at that job. Oh, wait, I really like my job. Oh, I love my wife. I wouldn't want to be with their wife, so on and so forth. It actually gives you a little more gratitude when you compare yourself to somebody who you're jealous of and realize that I don't want all the things that they have. Look at all these good things that are in my life.
Right. So you've taken that quote and taken it like one step further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I almost started comparing myself to people more and was like, hey, my life's pretty good.
Nice. So any other systems you want to talk about?
I think when it comes to mindset, like I said, it's pretty simple. We pretty much summed the whole thing up. You have to become an optimist. You have to turn everything into a positive. Once you do that, you won't linger on the negative thoughts because there won't be any. The reality of the situation, life is short and then you die. And the reality of the situation is, if you're listening to this podcast right now, your life's probably pretty good. You probably got a phone in your hand. You probably got money enough to pay for Spotify, so on and so forth. You're probably doing pretty well for yourself. Maybe you even drove your car to work. If those things are true at a bare minimum, and that's all you have a lot more than almost everybody else. So start comparing yourself to everybody as often as possible and realize that you don't have to be jealous of anybody because you have a whole bunch of things that you want already. Now you just have to go capitalize on it.
It's right there in front of you.
It's right there in front of you.
Yep. I like it.
Yep. So part 2, I want to talk about sleep.
All right.
So we'll get into that next.
Okay. Because I can talk for hours about sleep. I got all kinds of good information for you.
I can talk for hours about sleep as well, especially when it comes to just getting to sleep in the first place.
Yep. That's the challenge for many.
Yep.
Okay. We'll save that for the next one. Shall we wrap it up? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. John, thanks. It's always been a good time talking to you, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Be happy, everybody.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions you want answered, find us on Instagram at Motus Naples or send us an email. You can fill out a contact form on our website, which is motusnaples.com. Make sure to check out our blog and our shop as well, where there are downloadable programs that we'll continue to update. This is the Move with Motus podcast. We'll see you next week.